Hello, welcome to MS's Chronic. I'm your host Barney Black, and this episode's guest is a gentleman called Graeme Hutton. Graeme's a Professor of Architecture and Associate Dean of Learning and Teaching at the University of Dundee. He's been engaged in education for over 20 years, and the reason that he's one of my guests is he has had multiple sclerosis for over 30 years, I believe. Graeme has had many awards for his architect and design, and most recently, he has been recognised for the photography that he does, which is his way of expressing himself artistically outside of his professional environment. He recently had an exhibition at the Dundee V A, and he also has a book coming out very soon of photographs which are taken from his perspective from a wheelchair, which gives a completely different angle on how things look and also how Graeme perceives what's around him. I'm sure you'll enjoy this episode as you have the others, so please grab yourself a cup of tea, sit back and enjoy the stories that Graeme shares. Thank you, Graeme.
Pleasure.
Welcome to, I'm calling this MS's Chronic.
Okay,
That's the working title.
Fair.
And it's really just a chat talking about our journeys, your journey mainly. Yeah. I guess in two parts, actually up to the point of when you started to have symptoms and then reached a diagnosis and how life was impacted through that thing. I'd also love to talk about your art and your creative side and how you changed from brush to camera. Mm-hmm. So I think that's quite important as an ongoing piece of work. And I think we mentioned that on the phone. I think that's when I first saw your name through probably the MS Society work you were doing with the camera. Yeah. And then your exhibition at the V&A, which is really impressive. And I believe you've got a book
coming out. So
just this stuff. Oh, right, okay. So I feel quite honoured to see that there. Right. Excellent. So we'll talk a wee bit about that as well, because I think that's an outlet for you.
Yeah,
but I don't want to make any huge assumptions on that front. And then just see how it goes. And also, I've found personally, hindsight has played a big part in me dealing with my MS. Yeah. And I wonder again if we touch on that for you and see how that goes. So over to you. Okay. When did you first experience symptoms, which meant you went to the doctor because you thought this isn't just a...
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting. I think it's interesting, actually, Barney. The first thing is kind of speaking to you in a way, because I guess the first stages of being diagnosed for most people are quite similar. And then I think after that, it probably goes off in different directions for people, either more severe, less severe, whatever. So just turned 60. So literally, I would say about 35 years ago, I would first start having what many people probably have, which is, I guess with me, it started with slightly strange sensations on the skin, around the tops of my head and things felt a bit weird. And I thought I was maybe just getting a cold or something like that. And then it was the usual thing, the sort of left leg started to kind of feel a bit numb, and I just thought I've had my legs crossed too long or something like that, been sitting in a funny way. And then it lasts, it kind of lasts, and then if you kind of put up with it, and then it fades away, and you sort of think, well, it's nothing, I'll just leave it. So it was really a kind of cross between that, I suppose, and the funny sensations in the head. And then when I was in my final year at uni, doing architecture, I got a thing called Bell's palsy. Don't know if you know what that is,
but my friend had that one. So really, his whole face just dropped.
Yeah. Well, actually, curiously, it's the face side that looks dropped, which is normal. Yeah. It's the other face that's paralysed, which makes the side of your face that's normal look as if it's dropped. So yeah, it's paralysis on one side of the face, and I went to see the doctor about that, and then I suspect the doctor was beginning to kind of think, do you know what I mean? But that was in, so that would be 1989 or something, 1989. So I had Bell's palsy, and that lasted about 3 months, and I got these bloody enormous horse tablets.
3 months, that's a long time.
It was about 3 months. I felt it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was residual. I probably had it for about a month, noticeably, and then I still had this residual numbness. And then, as I say, I got these flipping horse tablets to take, these steroids. I think it was a ridiculous 5 a day, enormous things. But then that seemed to sort of clear it. And, then it was back to the kind of funny feelings in the skin. But then I got diplopia, double vision. And it was quite bad, that. I mean, I can remember trying to cross the road, North Anderson Drive in Aberdeen. It was a really busy road, and you'd see a car coming, but actually it was the shadow of the car that was, and then another car, and then they'd kind of join together like a rangefinder camera, and then they'd both split apart again and go away. It's a really funny sensation. So it's like double vision, basically, particularly kind of lateral double vision. So it comes together in the middle and then splits away. So that was really weird, and I thought, better go to the doctor about that. So I think at that point, the doctor was definitely starting to think, this is a bit weird. And that was literally, it must have been that weeks before my 30th birthday. So a real classic time for getting kind of diagnosed with MS at 30. So I probably had these funny symptoms on and off for about 4 or 5 years. And I think I mentioned to you when we spoke, I was really terrified because it was the time of all the AIDS adverts on the television, don't die of ignorance, shattering tombstones and all that stuff. I was convinced through my naughty student years that I'd picked up something. And so when I actually went for a diagnosis, I can't remember, I think the doctor had used the word sclerosis when I'd seen him before, and I hadn't really put 2 and 2 together, but I went to Waterson's and looked it up before I went for the doctor's appointment, and it was like everything just fell into place. I actually literally went into a cold sweat because I just read the symptoms one after the other, and it just, boom. So when I went to see the doctor an hour later, I knew exactly what it was.
Yeah, and generationally, anybody listening that is from the last 20, 30 years, to go to Waterston's, the bookshop, you couldn't go into Google, probably a good thing. Nowadays, Google can probably lead you down too many different rabbit holes, but you actually had to go and kind of turn pages.
That's a funny thought. You're absolutely right. There was
no
not
that long ago.
Yeah, no internet, no idea of looking up on the internet what it was, nothing like that, or certainly not in my life. Maybe there were people using it before me, but
I think you said, I remember you going on to say getting an MS diagnosis.
It was kind of a bit of a relief. Well, it was probably would have been a relief anyway, knowing that there's something. It's not cancer, it's not a brain tumor. It's not, it's something that you can probably live with.
Yeah, it's not a killer.
Because I'd done a bit of research in Watson's, I kind of knew it wasn't a killer. So from that point of view, it wasn't AIDS, it wasn't a brain tumor, it wasn't. I sort of thought, okay, right, and actually pretty readily kind of came to terms with it, really. And I guess for a long time.
Physically, what was your kind of condition at that point?
At that point,
had it relapsed? Had the symptoms?
Yeah. I mean, I'd basically, I must have gone to the doctor. I think probably with the diplopia. Actually, that was the thing, and they gave me steroids for that. I think I got that twice actually. It came back again. And it's really disorientating. I mean, I don't know if you've ever had anything like that.
Never had the eye.
Yeah, because I get vertigo sometimes as well, and that's horrible. That really kind of knocks you. That sort of pretty disconcerting. So, but it passed. That steroids, it passed, and then I think that was in Aberdeen, and I had my own business with a colleague. We were running a business together, and I just kind of got on with it. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? A little bit lame maybe in my left leg, but it would pass, and I'd have good days where nobody would know.
Do you think because you'd had a diagnosis, you kind of were able to say, well, that's just the MS?
That's a good point. Maybe that's a good point. I mean,
handling mechanism.
Yeah, it probably is. And you maybe put other things down to MS that weren't MS, or that's what they always say. If you've got something that you feel isn't right, it might not be your MS. It could be a brain tumor. Actually, you might be unlucky and have that as well. But I mean, I basically yeah, it would be a coping mechanism.
Yeah,
I think it's a good point. I mean, you can reconcile it.
And again, back in that particular time, there wouldn't have been a huge amount of options available from a treatment, disease-modifying drugs or therapy. Did you get anything?
Well,
at
that's
that point?
interesting. Yeah, nothing for quite a while, I think. And then they decided to try me on interferon beta, the very first interferon betas that were out. And they said it might work, it might not. Some people seem to develop antibodies against it or something. And so, I was given the self-injecting pen and had to inject, I think it was 3 or 4 times a week. I can't remember, 5 times a week, something like that. And I have to say, I didn't find it very pleasant. Actually.
No, it doesn't. I'd avoid it.
I was fine at the beginning, but then you begin to kind of anticipate the needle a bit, and it's actually not that pleasant. The other thing is it's a bit awkward. I remember being in the Grill, a really kind of old man's pub in Aberdeen, a really nice pub actually, and having to go down to the toilets to flip and inject actually, and you're just hoping nobody comes in, and kind of sees you sitting basically with your trousers around your ankles, sticking it in your leg. You just look like a junkie actually. It doesn't make you feel great. But curiously, I started getting these massive wheals on the side of my legs where I was injecting. So I was getting this reaction.
I think that was quite, or maybe still is, quite a common side effect.
Yeah. But and I think they said that might be a sign that it's not working.
It's not good for you. And
it's not working for you.
Helping you, it's pointing you.
So it's funny because I go and see the consultant now at 9 Wells, Jonathan O'Reilly. And they've still got a photograph in my file from, must be about 20 years ago, of me with these big boils on my eye. I see when he flicks through the file, I can see it there. So that was, so I went through a phase of that. So I must have been on that for about 6 months or something like that.
You're still quite young. You're only, 30, 31?
I would be 31, 32 maybe then on that. And then, so came off that and just did the usual fish oil, big thing, take lots of fish oil, vitamin D. I was actually prescribed vitamin D, I think.
Was it really a prescription they gave you, right? Okay.
I don't know if they've prescribed that for you or said anything about it.
It's never been a prescription. I've been resistant. I've got, what's her name, Christine, is it Watley? MS nurse.
Yeah.
And she's super enthusiastic about take what you can as quick as you can and everything else. And I've always been, not blocking her, but I've always been like, Christine, I just don't like taking stuff.
Yeah.
Which is daft, because my wife says, you don't know any better than the doctors. Why don't you give yourself the best of both worlds, healthy lifestyle and everything else. But I did start buying the vitamin D supplements.
Okay.
And I tried to research, because it's the IU, the international unit, isn't it? And there's another measure of it. So I can't remember how many thousand IUs I was taking a day.
400 maybe?
I'm not sure. I can't remember. But actually, just today, I just noticed I've still got a jar of vitamin D on the windowsill in the kitchen, which I bought with the intentions of popping one every day. Yeah. But I haven't done that. I haven't been prescribed it, to answer your question.
I mean, it's interesting because I went through phase, lots of fish oil. That's not doing anything. I'll just give up on that. So I'm like you. I've probably got jars of supplements and all the good intentions and all that sort of thing. And I take nothing now. Absolutely nothing.
The time scale of your diagnosis is interesting because in the last 15 years, there's probably been loads of advancements. Certainly been loads of new drugs being introduced and passed by different authorities, so they can be given in the UK, then Europe, America, what have you. But during your period of first few years of diagnosis, there would have been, interferon would have been one of maybe 2 or 3 that was available. And they were only, they still are, but they were only to modify or to limit any potential damage.
Right. In the future, to slow it down a bit. Yeah.
And also, the other holistic advice would have been, to access it, first of all, you would have had to have gone to a library or a bookstore, research. And and you're an academic. What or if did you research once you found out about MS beyond actually what it was as a condition for lifestyle?
That is very, I think that's a really good point. I mean, there's so much out there. I mean, your computer explodes if you type the words MS into it. And navigating through all the crap is really hard. And there are so many gurus out there that think that they know the answer and they're really persuasive. And I don't know if you remember, a little while back, there was a thing called CSVI, chronic cerebral, something about the vagus nerve and blood not circulating to the brain properly, CCSVI. And there was a guy on YouTube who everybody thought was, and he was American and he was really charismatic, big guy, the bear, I think he called himself. And he promoted this to death. And I dared to say on his chat one day, is there any research? And is there any scientific research to show that?
Any peer review?
And he was like, we don't need scientific research. We know this is working, that kind of thing. So I will always now go, as you say, academic. I will always now go and look for the peer-reviewed evidence to see.
Anecdotal stuff's useful, but it needs to be
completely useful,
and
it can be quite compelling. And actually, as somebody who's supposed to be a big fan of research can be slow. It can sometimes not take account of these qualitative, anecdotal things. And if it makes people feel better, it's a well-known thing that the placebo effect is actually quite a good thing. If it makes you feel better, great. So, I don't deny that, but I will always try and find actual evidence that something works, because there is so much out there that you could easily jump on a million bandwagons and find it's just a dead end, and sometimes quite costly dead end, actually. The big one, obviously, at the moment is people going to Mexico and all these places for stem cell therapy. And, I was reading a story of a guy actually promoted by the MS Society just the other day, it might even be yesterday, who'd gone to Mexico, spent £45,000 of his own money, and he's a bit like you. He's kind of living with it quite well. His view maybe is it's preventative, but how will you know? And actually, you can do a lot of things with 45 grand.
That's true.
To enjoy your life.
That's true.
Do you know what I mean?
I did another little, I'll edit this about, I did another session. I don't want to call them interviews. I spent some time with Damien Washington today as well, just over the video type thing. And we were talking about not the funny thing, I guess it is the funny thing about MS is that no matter what therapies you take, no matter what preventative medicines you subscribe to, you just don't know. Because the science can't say for definite whether or not the stability that I've had, which I'm grateful for, is going to be stable for however long. And equally, when you were diagnosed to the point of where you are now in the chair, there's still no confirmation of have you had the worst of what MS will give you, and there's the lifestyle changes and choices that you've made actually perhaps helped not get any worse to where you are, which that seems, I don't know what that seems like. It doesn't seem right knowing that you're in a wheelchair because of MS. That makes sense?
I'm trying to unpack that a bit. I guess what you're saying is
it's uncertain.
I leave it. Well, no matter what you do, you don't know whether what you've done is the thing that's making the impact. So you take vitamin D, you think, gosh, I'm pretty stable. Would you have been stable anyway? Maybe it's because of a glass of red wine every night, or you know what I mean? It's like, I just have no idea. I am not by any manner of means a kind of diet fetishist or I live a perfectly healthy, normal life, eat a fairly balanced diet, have a nice drink, have a brandy most nights, actually, a glass of wine. You've got to enjoy life. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's like you could go tomorrow, actually, for other reasons. And, why not? Why just not enjoy life?
Yeah, you got to live in the moment.
Live in the moment, everything in moderation. Just going back to that question about things that you've done that maybe altered the course of it, but how do you know kind of question. One of the things that I did get probably about maybe 15 years ago, would it be, maybe more, 18 years ago, something like that, was chemotherapy.
Right,
I don't know if they've ever offered that to you.
No. I think I've been offered a huge amount. The lesions I've got are predominantly in my spine, I think. I've got a few dotted around the brain.
Okay.
And I think I think because I don't know. I'm assuming because the ones I've got are predominant in the spine, certainly the longer ones are. That's why it's my legs which are affected the most.
Okay.
But I've never been ill for anything apart from, I think it would have been Capaxone.
Okay.
I was off an A,
Yeah.
and ultimately
And did you
Tecfidera,
take it?
dimethyl.
Oh, you're on
I'm on the
Tecfidera, aren't you?
Tecfidera or whatever it's called now.
Yeah. And
Dimethyl.
how does that work? What's it supposed to do?
It's if it's to reduce the likelihood of a relapse, or if you have a relapse, it's to reduce the after effects, any residual damage.
Okay.
So I've been taking it pretty consistently. I had a 6-month gap, again, going back to that point about I just want to live as healthy a life as I can without anything else.
Sure.
But I went back onto it again, more because my wife was insistent upon it. That's not fair. I probably felt I should as well. So yeah, I've been on Tecfidera I got diagnosed March 2017. I started taking that in September. It took me 6 months to decide to actually take it because I was offered it pretty quick. And that's been the one that I've on. The only side effects I get is flushing, which can be managed if I eat at the same time as taking the tablet, or take the tablet just as I'm had something inside the gut.
You take it?
AM and PM.
Oh, right, twice a day.
Twice a day.
So what is that doing to you? I mean, is it dampening the immune system?
It's reducing dampening the immune system.
There are
So I get my bloods taken every 3 months.
Okay.
Because it can bugger up your kidney or liver.
Okay.
There's also the brain virus. What's that called?
Oh, encephalitis? No.
I can't remember.
Oh, right.
You get tested for your likelihood to be susceptible to that before you take Tecfidera or dimethyl fumarate.
Okay.
I did some research on it, dimethyl fumarate, and I'm sure it's not a Wikipedia hoax. It was used in the packaging of furniture to reduce the likelihood of mold forming. I think it was also used in medical ways for something to do with heart conditions as well. So it's like a lot of drugs that
they're repurposing
them for things like MS, where there might have been a cancer drug to begin with, or a heart
You're
drug.
not going on any of the trials then for that, because they've got this octopus trial just now that they're running, which I've tried to get on, but I don't know why. I don't know whether I'm too far down the line or what the story is, but I don't seem to be able to get on it. And they're doing exactly that. Centres all over the country looking at, and it's like octopus. It's like, they're trying this drug, that drug, that. It's a repurposing drugs, but I can't seem to get on it. I think the Rolling Centre in Edinburgh is the one that they're doing it through. But
is that the one that Mark Webb's on? You know Mark Webb?
I do know him online, but yes, he on Octopus. I think he might be.
He's on a trial.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's on a trial. He doesn't know if he's a placebo or not. But
I think I did one trial, and I can't remember what it was for. But I remember getting scanned regularly and things. I can't remember what it was for. Actually, that might have been a separate thing. I think that was to get money as a student. Scratch that. I think that was to get money as a student.
That's cool.
That's probably what was giving me bloody MS, actually. They injected us with these radioactive
you've been a lab rat.
I remember exactly. Bloody paid lab rats probably gave me it.
Oh, wow.
But going back, so the cancer treatment, I think that is one thing that I think slowed it down. That was 18 months of chemotherapy, mitoxantrone. They use it abroad a lot. They use it in France, Germany, blah, blah, blah. And I did look up the research on that, and it did seem to suggest that, maybe it has an impact for 5 to 10 years after you've had it.
Yeah.
Not pleasant. Wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy to go through. God love all the people who have to go through it for other reasons. But I think that did maybe have a slight impact on the delay.
How old were you when you went through that?
Well, I would say that was about 18 years ago. So it was maybe in my early 40s about 40 maybe, so maybe 20 years ago.
So about 12 years after maybe the initial diagnosis.
Yeah, and I think I was just the right candidate for it probably. And I think it was to try and stop me progressing so rapidly. And I don't know why, but I think that maybe did have an impact at that time.
I never asked, sorry, and if it's too personal, obviously, please say. have you now been diagnosed with progressive?
Yes, secondary
MS,
progressive.
secondary
Yeah,
progressive.
and I have for a number of years.
Okay, so and initially was it relapsing that
Yes,
you were diagnosed with?
So that's what I was saying right at the beginning. Very typical, probably for left leg diplopia is like a classic sort of thing. And then I would say it would be secondary progressive, maybe for the last nearly 10 years. Actually, I've had secondary progressive. But that said, it's very, very stable. I mean, if it is 10 years, it's very stable. The only really noticeable things for me are the tremor in my right arm is now, I mean, I literally can't, if I put my hand out.
Is that the tremor?
That's the tremor.
That's really significant. So
if I try and pick something up,
right,
like my glasses, my right arm, I can't do it.
Can't do it. Okay, well.
Now the left hand, you'll notice, is getting, it's creeping severe, in,
right,
but it's not nearly as severe. So, this is really bad, and this way is creeping into this hand. And curiously, they now have a very pioneering machine at 9 Wells, a focus ultrasound machine it's called, which they're using on Parkinson's tremor and essential tremor. And it's transformational. It's a sort of, I think it's just a very focused beam to a certain part, microscopic part of your brain, sorts it out more or less for, that one would become like this one. It wouldn't completely sort it, but you would be able to, you'd be able to use it. So the tremor's really awful now. I've been to see Jonathan just in the last month or so about this, and he thinks my tremor might be part essential tremor and part MS. So they're going to scan me to look and see where the lesions are, because I've not had a scan for 25 years or something.
Seriously?
Yeah, no, I've not been scanned regularly through my MS at all. I couldn't tell you where the lesions are, what they are. It was interesting, you said, I've got one here, one there, one, in this length and that length. I have no idea.
Well, that makes me feel hellish. I've had umpteen scans in the, what am I now, 54, 32 was when I had the first MRI.
Yeah.
So I probably had one every 3 years. Mainly because possibly because it's been every couple of years I've been back to the doctor with a new symptom, which at that point had still no diagnosis. But, and I don't know if I said this when we first spoke, 2002 was the first time I went to the doctors with a numbness, actually, my left-hand side here, these two fingers. I think that's quite typical as well. I was working in Edinburgh. Anyway, I ended up down at the private hospital in Edinburgh. It doesn't know what it's called, I can't remember.
Spire.
And got an MRI.
Okay.
But they put the ink or the whatever the colour fluid through me as well. Nothing about it. Maybe a trapped nerve. I got a neck brace to wear for a bit and all that kind of palaver. Fast forward, various symptoms and blah, blah, blah. But fast forward to meeting a Glaswegian neurologist, who I can't remember his name. He sat me down and says, has anybody discussed multiple sclerosis with you? And I says, no. In fact, I've got no idea what that is. I was really blank at this point. I says, because back in 2002, there was notes that there was a possibility from the scan that you had that could be an outcome. But subsequently...
That's what they do, though. They have to leave it because it's multiple sclerosis. So you might have one episode, nothing else. And then it's the multiple that they're waiting for things to happen. And so that's probably why you've had scans then, because they're building up a picture.
Again, this isn't about me, but my diagnosis ultimately was confirmed on the back of a lumbar puncture.
I managed to dodge that.
Did you? Well done.
Why. I managed to. I think my symptoms were just so classic.
Right, okay.
That I think they did scan me. They scanned me then. And I think the symptoms were so classic and the scan added together, they just didn't need to do it. Because I have to say, that sounds hellish.
I've heard people have had no problems with lumbar puncture, but mine was the worst pain. Not after the actual process itself. It was the worst pain. I remember, I wasn't in the fetal position, I was leant over the bed. So they could obviously open the spine. And the doctor that was doing it, she kept hitting a nerve.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Which not only was it agony. It made my leg jump and hit the underside of the bed. I was sitting leant over, so I was getting this like what was being stabbed in the back. Then my leg would jump, and I was in tears, man. It was horrible.
That is horrible.
Then she went and got somebody else, and I thought, have I been a student that's been working on me? But apparently she was usually very good at what she did.
So it's your fault.
I don't know what it was. Either my spinal column was too close together and she couldn't find the gap, or what have you.
Gives me the heebie-jeebies, the thought of that.
Yeah, and then the doctor came through and he managed it. He was because you get local anaesthetic as well into the.
Presumably that is what confirmed your diagnosis then.
Yeah, there's the OC band. I can't remember the full name, but that fluid, whatever they're looking for in that fluid, just allowed them to say, okay, all these things plus the scans. Plus the symptoms that's being presented. Now we've got the spinal fluid. That was it. And then when I got the result to go and see, it was Dr. Reardon, Professor Reardon. I knew before I'd gone in I was going to get confirmation because we've been talking about that as the kind of thing they were looking at the most. Which my situation was completely different to yours. I think from when I was asked, had anybody discussed it with me to the point of getting a formal diagnosis, it was probably about 18 months to 2 years. Again, because my symptoms have never been severe. The most worrying ones which is what led me to, I think, getting fast-tracked through more tests, lumbar puncture diagnosis. The last 18 months was pretty regular with contact between a neurologist, myself, and the GP. I've lost my train of thought again. I'll play it back and I'll remember. What was I talking about?
The lead up to kind of diagnosis and getting scans, lots of scans, which we're talking about.
I think it was something to do with, it wasn't a surprise, but it wasn't a relief either, because I think I knew that's what I was going to be getting dealt with, and then I began to kind of look at, okay, what does this mean? Because I think mindset's a really important thing for people wherever they are and whenever they're dealt with whatever cards they might find a challenge. And I've always been a fairly stoic, optimistic, but not completely dreaming about everything's going to be okay. And so I think that helped me deal with the MS, knowing the symptoms I've got aren't debilitating. I think I was going to say the worst ones were the numbness in my back area and my lower back. I couldn't feel anything there. I could still move. I didn't have any lack of movement, but I.
Plus, you could understand how you might think that might be just a physical nerve thing because it's your lower back, it's where your nerves are getting the kind of tail end. So you can kind of understand that actually. But I mean, in terms of scans and things like that, they've decided they're going to send me for a scan to look particularly at this tremor issue. And they said, we're fast-tracking scans. We don't have a big waiting list just now. So I got my scan through the other day, bloody Stracathro.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. So I was like, I had to phone them up and they said, we're really sorry. You should have been marked as being a wheelchair user in
9 wells.
9 wells. So that's another delay.
You got to reschedule it.
Yeah, reschedule it. Yeah, well, look, it's no hassle.
Yeah, I know, but it's an extra couple of weeks on top of.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, having not had one for 25 years, it's hardly a big deal.
Okay.
So that's kind of up to the point, and it probably was about 10 years ago for the secondary progressive MS, and it's interesting how you kind of resist. Well, sorry, one might resist. I resisted for a long time. Going into a wheelchair, you know, and you just, because you have some good days and bad days, and even with a stick, you're some days you're really struggling, but some days you're kind of still okay, and you've got a stick, and it can be quite cool. I got this clear stick, like a glass stick. It was really cool. Still got it in the house actually, and you know, I managed, and it's part of your persona and your character. You use the stick and stuff until about 2015. 2015 is when I thought this is just, you know, I can't go on like this. I'll get a wheelchair. And it was like, hallelujah. Really, hallelujah. I mean, all the restrictions, all the kind of difficulties of mobility and things like that, getting on a wheelchair was actually bloody liberating. It's funny because I've got a colleague who I don't see very often, but she really struggled along with 2 crutches. I think she still might be struggling, and it's gone on for years, really struggling along in crutches. And I kind of said to her before, just get a chair, it's a lot easier.
Yeah.
Okay, it comes with its own restrictions, but actually, by comparison, it's the better of the options, actually, by the time you get to that point. So yeah, I've been in a chair now for, since about 2015. So yeah, it's 2024, so it'll be nearly 10 years, 10 years next year.
Okay. It's quite a bold move, though, as well, when you're trying to retain to...
It is. And that thing you were saying about optimism and your persona and your kind of outlook on life, I have to say that I've just kind of got on with it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like I just get on with it. And it's funny, I've got colleagues here who genuinely forget I'm disabled. Like they book rooms for things and they'll forget that I can't get down to the foot of the lecture theatre to give a lecture. And one of them, this guy, this good friend, really said, oh my God, he said, I didn't do it through any malice. He said, I just completely forget that you're disabled. He said, it doesn't...
Visually, it's not a register.
It's not, because, I'm quite a, forward, sort of, open person, and I just get on with it. People tend not to see the disability, and I certainly don't dine out on it, or, when I see some people playing the sort of swinging the lead with a sore, head or something, I just think...
I see a few memes about that.
Do you know what I mean? It's like, I could really swing the lead if I wanted to, but I've never been that kind of moral person.
Yeah.
I feel I want to do a good job in my job, I want to be kind to people and, just get on with life and feel that you've, contributed, actually, rather than shirked.
Well, that's why I love speaking to people like yourself. I'm not sure, and I might not be looking in the right places. So perhaps that's part of my problem, my challenge. But I don't feel people with MS or other illnesses or chronic get a fair representation of what it is to live with MS. There's lots of admirable people out there telling stories and things, but organisations, whether it's the charity organisations or the media outlets, that either they've got characters that present themselves with MS, or the stories that they're trying... I get it in part because they're trying to raise awareness of how challenging it can be. But the downside for me is that people don't necessarily live their life in a challenging way. They don't perceive like you have.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Do you know what I mean? It's just like, okay, having MS is a pain in the arse. To whatever degree you've got it. But there's a lot of people there that live a big quotations normal life.
I mean,
which
I think,
you've described beautifully.
I think that's, you can see why the charities need to present the way they present, because otherwise, if we just all go out and say, look, we're all fine, we're living perfectly, we're making research funding dries up, so that, they've got to kind of present it in all its facets. But I think, what you're saying is right, is that actually we can present that we're living a positive contributory life, all that kind of thing, and we're getting on with it. But actually, if I was to really go under the skin of it and tell you what it's like getting up in the morning, what it's like going to the loo, what it's like having sex, what it's like, all the things that we want to do in life and continue to do and enjoy are actually not as pleasurable and easy, not as natural as they might be.
In the way we describe natural, absolutely.
And thoughtless in the way that you can just do them without, it's interesting in the book, curiously, one of the things it made me do was, the publisher said, you need to caption for every image, you need to say something about it. And through the lens of somebody, that's got a different perspective, as it were. And it is quite interesting because, I took a photograph, for example, of people sitting on the shore at Broughty Ferry, a sort of shadowy silhouette photograph. Yeah. And they were just sitting with their feet over the edge into the sea. And I just thought, it's such a nice, simple thing to do. It was all family sitting in a line. And I'm stuck in the chair thinking, I can't do that.
Can't do that anymore.
I can't just get out of the chair and dip my feet in the water. And actually, it sounds like a really simple thing, but actually, it's an incredibly pleasurable thing to do.
Yeah.
And you just can't do that. And it's that spontaneity, that kind of, which actually, if you let it get to you, could be pretty dispiriting. And you have moments. Everybody has moments where I was with my old professor, is a very good friend of mine who's 84, and we were having drinks yesterday, a lot of drinks. And, I was in Belgium with him last year, and he did 17,000 steps on his pedometer thing, at 84. Went out for a big walk and everything. I went back to the room for a rest, and it was like, and I'm jealous of that.
Yeah.
Of course, I'd like to be in another 25 years doing 17,000 steps around a European city. Of course I would.
Yeah.
So if you burrow under the skin of the happy life, there's lots of little things that you've got to push to the back of your mind, and also things that are just so regular and everyday that you just have to get on with them.
I think in some ways, describing the unseen challenges the way that you have, and still outwardly, publicly being able to present a very successful, very creative person, again, illustrates whilst MS is an absolute bugger, and that's underplaying it, obviously. The quality, I don't know if quality of life's the right thing, but the quality of what you do with your life, possibly a slightly better way to phrase it, can be really fulfilling.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you absolutely, have to deal with the cards you're dealt and get on with it, in my view. And, I sometimes look at people and wonder whether they'd be miserable even if they didn't have MS, actually. There's some people who seem to sort of wallow in it, and it becomes their lives, and everything that, their lives are described by it somehow. And look, I understand that, that maybe people are worse affected than I am, and that it maybe just gets too much and so on. And I've, God bless them, I've got a wonderful family, a wife and children and all that sort of thing, who I could not be anything like as positive and contributory and supported and all these things without them. That's absolutely, and some people don't have that, so I can understand that might make you a little bit more introspective, but you kind of have to get on with it.
You've touched on a thing there which actually is quite interesting. I think you're right. I think that description of the family who support you through good days, bad days, and help the good days be really good days. And there may be others who don't have, for whatever reasons, a network.
Yeah.
How involved, or outside of the family circles, are you involved in an MS way with other MSers, or do you look to other MSers for company, for affirmation, for anything? Or did you do that and then drift away from it, or has it ever been part of your life?
I've never done it. Okay. Never done it, and I don't know anybody else with MS actually now, apart from one person who I've not seen for quite a long time, but we do communicate occasionally online. And what you realise is that you either get on with somebody, whether they've got MS or not. Actually.
Yeah, the MS is not defined, is it?
I could probably go and sit in a MS society meeting or something, and you might hit it off with one or two people, but you might have nothing in common with anybody, actually, other than your MS, and then that becomes the only point of conversation. You're going to get pretty bored and fed up of that.
Yeah.
So, I've never really engaged with anybody in any level with MS at all, actually, or the MS Society or MS groups or anything like that.
So it's quite a nice segue from what you were talking about the creativity and the photography you were doing. Because I'm sure it would have been through. Was the photography, actually, tell us about the transition from your art from a brushstrokes perspective or a brushstrokes type and anything else you did artistically to moving into the photography.
So I'm an architect. So, basically, I used to draw. As a creative person, drawing with a pencil, working out ideas, hand to eye to brain, sort of, that was really my thing, was drawing. drawing, thinking, planning and organising buildings to a relative degree of success. I mean, that house on the left that you see is in Meagle. Actually, that won an RIBA award, and the house on the right is on the way to Maniki. That was shortlisted for Grand Design's House of the Year and won Angus Building of the Decade and all that sort of thing.
Beautiful.
So a really successful career with a local architects practice here who are very good and open to discussion about things, and great clients, great projects, really enjoyed doing them.
Is that?
And that's that one. Yeah, that's that one. You know, that was really good, and I would have continued that in that vein. But the tremors, as I mentioned, got so bad that I can't draw. I mean, I just showed you how bad it is. I can't sign my name, I can't write, I can't do anything with my right hand at all. And so about 2018, maybe 18, 19, I picked up a camera because I need to be feeling like I'm creative, kind of fueled by doubt. I mean, it's fueled by doubt. You kind of think if you don't do it for a bit, you're going to lose it, you know. So you have to keep trying pushing yourself. So I picked up the camera and started taking photographs. And it's funny because, you know, you look at, you know, the value of practice, actually, of just doing something again and again and again and again, getting better at it, whether that's wood turning or metal work or photography or drawing, whatever it is. I think the value of kind of iterative practice is really undervalued actually now. But I can look back at the work I started doing with the camera when I started compared to now, and it's got better. You know, it has got better, there's no question, and that's just through iterative practice. And that gives me a feeling of reward, actually. You know, if I go out of a weekend and I come back and I've got 5 good photographs, I feel good about myself.
Do you go out with a objective of what you're trying to capture?
No.
So what stimulates you?
I just go places, and my wife hates it because she knows underneath. Because I'm wanting to go to Perth Museum because I've not been yet to see it, and I want to go and see it. And she knows I just want to go to see what photo opportunities I can get. You know, stone. What stone? I'm not interested in stone.
Yeah, you better pay attention for that anyway.
You know, it's like, you know, I'm just wanting to go. So anytime I suggest we go somewhere, she knows that underneath
there's a reason.
There's another reason.
It's ulterior thing.
So I just wander off in my wheelchair with a camera, and she just wanders off and has a look at whatever it is. So, you know, I mean, she's massively supportive. I'm not being critical. I love her to bits. You know, no. She would recognise that. So yeah, we just try and go places and do things, and actually it gives you a reason to go somewhere, to do something. You know, I like doing that, but equally I'm happy pottering around in St Andrews with a camera, taking photographs, or we just go somewhere. I just take the camera with me and then sit around, and it's quite interesting being in a wheelchair. If you're out in a wheelchair and you sit around and you don't have a camera, people will come up and say, "Are you all right? Do you need help? Are you lost? You know, can I help?" And it's very nice, well-meaning people. Yeah. But if you've got a camera, people know that you're doing something. Yeah. And you get less of that, other than I use a Leica camera, which is a nice German camera, and it has a certain kind of clique of people who will know what it is and come up and speak to you about it.
So you get camera aficionados.
Yeah. So you get Leica. Well, Leica people come up and they will talk to you and say, "What have you got?" And so actually, I think they said it's a bit like having a dog in the park. It's like it brokers a conversation. So there's something nice about just being in the public realm with a camera, because people treat you slightly differently in a wheelchair. I feel a bit naked if I'm out in a wheelchair without it. Literally. So it's
now part of you now when you're out.
Yeah. It is. I do feel a bit like, you know, like naked. You know? So I like to have it with me because it makes people think you're doing something. Yeah.
It's evolved though, isn't it? From finding an alternative way to express your artistic self to now being something where actually you are presenting what it is to view from a chair.
Yes.
In a photographic medium.
Yeah. I mean,
how did that evolve?
I mean, I guess just have a different perspective. You're immediately at a different eye level. You see things slightly differently. Yeah. You know, I've got a photograph which I could show you, which is taken in Broughty Ferry, that almost nobody else would see because they're all standing up. And, it's, I show it to people and they go, where's that? So that's Broughty Ferry. Oh, yeah, so it is, but they wouldn't have seen it that way.
View, yeah.
So I guess once you become attuned to that, I suppose I didn't really think about that. But then when you become aware of it, it starts to become part of the way you think you see taking pictures. You're conscious of that lower horizon, as it were. And so things like ground reflections and, that sort of thing, you're kind of closer to the action for that. And actually, the other thing is that you can sit quietly in a corner and people will deliberately kind of ignore you because you're in a wheelchair. It's the usual thing of, don't look. That's the thing. So actually, you can be quite discreet.
Don't stare.
Yeah, don't stare. And I found that that's the point you make about, do you go out with an agenda, kind of looking for stuff to photograph? And actually, one of the things I've learned is that I can actually find, by sitting quietly in a place and just watching people moving and how people move around and what they do and things, the photos come to you in a way.
Yeah.
So rather than hunting them out, it's just wait for the prey.
You get attuned to the environment you're in, and you kind of, I understand that.
You do. And I think, it's just sitting quietly and waiting. Just find an interesting spot and just wait, or just wait till the light changes, or just wait, not dashing around looking for things, because you don't know what you're looking for.
Yeah.
But watching a place over a period of time, like the V A I've photographed in there 1 million times.
Yeah. You not only photographed in the V A, you've had an exhibition in the V A.
Well, yeah. I mean, they were very kind. They I mean, it was nice, and they curated it lovely. They did a great job. I was really, really pleased with it. And they upfronted the MS side of things.
Yeah.
Called Multiple Exposures. They had a big panel on the wall explaining MS.
Was that their idea or your idea?
That was their idea.
Right.
They did that. They put the whole thing together.
Yeah. And how did you feel about? Because a question I've got in my mind is the exhibition, the book. Underlying is a man who has multiple sclerosis in a wheelchair taking photographs. What comes first?
Well, look, my old professor friend said to me yesterday, he said,
is it Graeme? This first?
Yeah, no, it's very interesting.
Sorry.
He said the same thing. He said, yeah, but you don't want, it's not about you being a disabled photographer. He said, your photos are great, it's not about that. And I said, no, I know it's not about that, but that's a way in for a big audience, actually. It is. I mean, I don't know how many millions of followers the MS Society have had, but they've just interviewed me a bit like this, for, the UK one. It's a way in, and it gives you a distinctiveness that other people don't have.
Yeah. So
you can ride on the back of that a bit to say, well, actually, I've got a much wider portfolio of ideas than that. For example, I had a little showcase of work, which was 6 photographs about being in a wheelchair and things like that, in an artful way, not a kind of horrible mechanical medical way. And 6 of them were bought by the guy who's the chair of Creative Scotland and runs Jupiter Artland in Edinburgh for their collection. And they've got Tracy Emin and lots of people in their collection. So, people are buying it because actually they like the work. And although it might actually feature disability and things, I think it's an artful way of looking at it. So it's not just about the disability. But, I'm doing a talk, Stills Gallery, got in Stills in Edinburgh, as the photographic gallery on Coburn Street.
Okay, I know Coburn Street.
Yeah, just on the right-hand side, left-hand side as you're going up. They're doing a thing called Where Are All the Disabled Photographers?
Oh, are they really?
An afternoon next, in July, early July, 6th of July, I think it is. So I'm giving a talk at that. And so the disability and the photography do go hand in hand, but one isn't the be-all and end-all. Yeah, I'm not answering that question.
No, you have
actually.
Well. Neither defines the other.
Yeah, neither defines the other. Like you've said it. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
And
it is Graeme who's doing the photography.
Yeah.
The other 2 parts, the MS, the wheelchair, just happen to be
part of that story.
Yeah.
Yeah. And 90% of the photographs are not about that, but they are obviously taken from the perspective of somebody in a wheelchair. But some of them are very much about it in terms of, being photographs of the chair or me or whatever, where it's very apparent. And so, interestingly, without the disability entering in, I probably wouldn't have gone back to the camera. So in a way, it was a catalyst.
Yes.
So I owe it a bit of a debt of gratitude. So I need to acknowledge it somehow in the work.
Because of that path your life is on.
Yeah.
It's now opened up this creative outlet.
Yeah.
Which potentially wouldn't have been your first.
Exactly. So it's given me a great deal of pleasure. I continually think about the next thing. I mean, I'm already getting nervous because I've not taken photographs for a couple of weeks, and I'm thinking, what am I doing this weekend? I really need to capture some things that I feel good about. So I'm kind of in that period at the moment of doubt. I saw there's another guy who does some photographs around. I don't know him, but he's really good as well. And actually seeing other people's work really kind of drives you on.
When you see other people's work, does it? You must look at that as a photographer, rather than someone like me who would look at it as someone's looking at, I guess, art in a space where it's something which you're drawn to because you kind of like the image.
Trust
but
your
you're
eye.
looking at it from a creative, certainly, but from a technical point of view as well.
Technical point of view, not so much.
Okay.
I'm not interested in cameras. I'm not interested in the technical side of things. I'm not interested in any of that. I don't have thousands of lenses and all that stuff. I mean, I'm just not interested in that kind of thing. It's funny you should say the sort of MS club thing. Have you ever joined, a society or things like that? They actually remind me a bit of camera clubs. They tend to be not interested in photography. They're actually interested in cameras.
Right.
They just want to go and say, "Oh, I've got this lens, and I've got, look at the size of mine." It's like, no, I'm not interested in all that. I mean, I've got one camera and a fixed lens on it, so I don't even have a zoom lens and things like that. So I like that kind of restriction. I mean, it's really important, that constraint, I think, to kind of make you more creative. You've definitely choices.
Yeah, well, the images you've taken and obviously leading to your book as well now, which is obviously another recognition.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a joke when the publisher got in touch. I thought it was a scam, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, I did. I genuinely thought it was a scam.
And can I say, is that who I think it is who's done the foreword?
Yeah, Alan. Yeah.
Alan Cumming, Alan Cumming, the actor.
Alan and I were at school together.
Oh, were you really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah,
he's one of my favourites.
Oh, well, you can read the foreword, actually. If you open it, it's in the first couple of pages, actually. As I say, that's just
I probably can't see without my glasses, but
that's just a photocopied pile of stuff. But, there you go. So we were at school together and have sort of kept up a connection, and also he's done a little bit of work with my son, actually.
That's lovely.
Yeah, no, he's a very nice chap, actually.
Certainly, from what I see, which is purely through the television screen, certainly comes across that way.
Yeah, no, and his life has taken on a new spin because of Traitors. He's really doing incredibly well with that, actually. I see he just signed a deal yesterday or the day before with Universal Studios where he's got first dibs on. So they seem to have a huge portfolio of these types of programme, and they obviously want him as a presenter. He's quite a hot ticket now for that.
Yeah, I'll never forget the High Life.
Oh, it was
so funny. I love that.
Absolutely brilliant. That. Yeah.
Anyway, we got off on a tangent, which I knew we would. Yeah. I guess maybe kind of bringing it to a neat kind of conclusion then. MS in your world, you're not actively involved, and there's no reason that you should be with MS groups or anything else like that, but you have a connection through various work and activity.
Well, the MS Society are helping promote that because I'm giving all the proceeds, net profits, to the MS Society. So for me, it's a way of using something that people seem to think I'm okay at and actually getting hopefully some funds and putting it to some research or something. So I've got an agreement with the MS Society Scotland that they're getting all the net profits.
That's fabulous. I'll put that in the show notes. once it's published.
Okay.
Make sure it gets updated and promoted as well. And I'll obviously invest in a copy myself. I'll be delighted to look at that.
Yeah, I would sign it if it wasn't going to be such a huge scrawl. That's the embarrassing thing. If people saying, "Can I have a signed copy?" It won't be a bloody mess, actually.
But it'd be a unique mess. It would be Alan, it would be Graeme's mess, you know. So what's next then? You've got an MRI coming up.
Yeah, I've got
From
an
MS
MRI
point of view, you've got an MRI
coming
coming up.
Well, actually, curiously, I'm looking to think about retirement because in 2 years I'll be 62, and this role that I've got at the moment as deputy dean, it's a 3-year cycle, so it'll come to a sort of natural end. Although I could do another one if I wanted. I think I'd like to retire and spend more time taking photographs. But that comes with its own challenges as a person in a wheelchair, because you sort of think, well, you don't want to be getting isolated. So, you know, where we stay, it's not in the centre of town. So I've got to think about that. You know, I'd ideally like to move somewhere like, you know, the Ferry or St Andrews or somewhere where it's a busy, bustling place where you can go out your front door.
And there's stuff going on.
You know, and I can't do that without getting on a bus or coming into the centre of Dundee. And I love Dundee, but I don't want to spend too much time in the centre with my camera. I'd rather be somewhere else. And St Andrews is quite appealing and things, but very expensive. And you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Downsides, you know, that sort of thing. So I've got to think carefully about that next stage of my life, really, in terms of where I am and how accessible the world is outside the front door. Because otherwise, if you've not got work, what else is there?
Yeah, you don't want to have empty time.
Exactly.
Especially when you've got such fulfilled, busy time, both with your work and with what you're doing from a creative perspective. Yeah.
So, you know, I need to make sure I've got that creative outlet. I mean, I'm actually an academician of the Royal Scottish Academy, so I've got work I can do there in Edinburgh. You know, organising exhibitions and talks and that sort of thing. So I'll do that. You know, I'll put more energy into that. So that will allow me still to engage with that world of arts and architecture. But then doing my own stuff, I want to spend a couple of days a week out with the camera, actually, and build up a bigger portfolio.
And then more exhibitions and more reach.
More reach.
What you capture, people can see. Because that's ultimately, you're not doing it just so that you've got your own private collection, are you? You're doing it from a broader creative.
I mean, the publisher's talking about another book and that sort of thing. And, you know, I've actually got a backlog of stuff that could use, which I think is better work, actually.
Okay.
So from that point of view, I want to continue to be fulfilled, and hopefully, touch wood, the MS remains, you know, stable-ish, and it doesn't affect me mentally, very fortunately. It doesn't affect me in terms of fatigue, very fortunately, which it does. A lot of people. Do you get fatigue?
I did. The worst I've had, I spent 3 days in bed. I just couldn't leave bed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I just couldn't leave bed at all. But that seems to be quite a unique thing.
People say it's not that you're tired, it's kind of heaviness. Lethargy, a kind of...
It is a weight.
A weight, that's what people describe it as. It's like, you just suddenly feel like this dead weight.
Yeah. So I saw an emoji, or whatever you call them, a meme, the other day. And it's somebody, they're waking up, and there's a battery symbol, which is only like a third full. They sit up in bed, they yawn, and then the battery symbol drops to zero again, and that's it. You've just nothing left, and you've done nothing. So that's what that felt like, and that was quite a unique.
And you think it was
phase. Probably. Yeah. But I think we mentioned earlier that there's all these different symptoms which can be attributed to MS. You've got, I don't know, 26 plus at the last count. But on their own, they could be just something and nothing. And I'm 54. I'm very conscious that age comes with its own kind of challenges.
But you're pretty fit, though.
I'm not bad. And then I sometimes think, having been fit and active pretty much through school, after school, even into my early 20s and 30s, I never stopped playing football or things. Running was slightly later, but I wonder if that's helped maintain a degree of stability, along with the Tecfidera that I take as well in the last 6-7 years, whatever it is.
The only thing I can do, which is more difficult now because I can't really move my legs much at all, is swimming.
Right.
Because I used to swim competitively when I was a kid at NCR here in Dundee when they had a club. All the way, did the 3-day a week up in the early morning, all that sort of stuff. So I'm quite a good swimmer. And because of the upper body strength of the wheelchair and things, I can still sort of pull my legs behind me, as it were. So actually swimming is incredibly liberating.
Yeah.
Because you get in the water, and actually I can walk under the water, which is a weird feeling, having not walked for 15 years. The water takes your weight, and if I can move a leg, I can actually sort of walk under the water, which is a strange feeling, actually. But swimming is incredibly liberating.
You should get a waterproof camera.
Exactly. If I get arrested,
more images.
actually.
Well, maybe you need to make environment.
Dodgy about that.
Need to get it signed off. I haven't thought that through ever.
So it's water, swimming is great. So if we go on holiday, go to and get a pool and things. But that's the other stupid thing, incredibly limiting actually, is I remember getting into a pool in Spain and not thinking, how am I going to get out of this pool? And I couldn't get out of it. I actually got quite frightening because I suddenly realised I was in this pool and I couldn't bloody get out.
Wow.
And luckily there was this big guy who'd been sunbathing and his wife had disappeared, but he stayed and he saw me. And he said, do you want a hand? And he was really a big guy. He just lifted me right out of the pool. But if he hadn't been there, my wife wouldn't have managed it. Yeah. And I don't think my son was there. It just would have been
a moment of...
it's a bit like, I've got in here, but I can't get out, So I've got to make sure that any pool that I'm in has these shallow climbing steps or a ramp.
Sloping in.
And then we find ways of doing it, bounce up onto a low chair and then up into the wheelchair kind of thing.
But it's a great example of just how you've got to be conscious of the normal things aren't normal anymore.
That is, that point, funnily enough, I was just thinking about it today because I was going down in that chair, in the electric chair, down to the graduation.
Yeah.
See, my ability to scan a pavement is like, it's like some bionic eye. Just, you're looking for every, raise, crack, drop, loose drain, cover. You literally have to really be careful.
That's another episode in itself, actually asking and getting your experience as a man in a chair, what that's been like, because I suspect it's much more, you need to be much more conscious and thought aware and visually aware, but also the challenges that must bring.
It's
because of the infrastructure
it's unbelievable.
Probably and
funnily enough,
should be.
That place in Spain I just mentioned when I was in the pool was actually a little place that we went to, just as an aside. My sister-in-law has a house in Spain, down near Murcia. And we decided, we were there for 2 weeks, let's go somewhere else for a couple of days. We found this little place called Elche, Elche. And funny little place, really nice little place, palm trees everywhere. I was thinking, what are palm trees? Well, actually, the centre for palm, like espadrilles, these shoes that have got that sole. So they do all that kind of stuff, weaving, palm weaving. But I'd been there a couple of days and I was thinking, Christ, what is so easy about this city? Everywhere, level access, everywhere, every pavement, every surface, absolutely. So I looked it up and it was the European Accessible City of the Year. And we'd just gone there by chance.
Just coincidence that you'd turned up there.
And I tell you, you really notice it when suddenly all the barriers, you don't notice it to start with. And after a while you're going, hang on. I've not had to kind of get helped up a curb, or I've not had to, and then you think, if a historic city in Spain can do it in Elche in Spain, ELC.
Shout out for them, man.
No, absolutely terrific time we had there, other than getting stuck in the pool. But it was brilliant, and they have just sorted everywhere. They've just said that's a policy, that's what we're going to do, and it's great.
That can be done.
It can be done, and it benefits everybody actually.
Yeah. Well, there's no restriction to those that don't need that flexibility.
Exactly. Brilliant. So that kind of microscopic kind of scanning is quite tiring, actually.
Definitely, that's a different episode altogether. We could go around Dundee and actually examine and explore just how accessible the place is. Oh, excuse me. A couple of things before we finish then. obviously MS is still one of those undefined, unknown why it happens, and so many different treatments available, but no cure. And people are still on that journey, either symptoms, pre-diagnosis, at diagnosis, post-diagnosis. Is there any advice or any kind of words of wisdom you could give somebody that's new to the condition?
It's funny enough. I mean, it's been asked of me before, and I'm always wary of, because it's so personal, it's so individual, it's so, I mean, I guess don't let it define you.
Yeah.
You can live with it. Most people can live with it. You'll probably die with it, not of it, probably.
Yeah.
I know in cases people can, but I mean, most people will live with it. And, there are coping mechanisms. I've found people, society at large, generally incredibly kind of helpful and accommodating if you need help. There's a lovely traffic warden pushed me up the hill in Crichton Street the other day there. And, people will generally look after you. And it does have advantages. Free parking.
Yeah, I've not got that far yet.
I was speaking to somebody the other day, and they said they'd gone into Perth to go to the museum with their family and couldn't park. It cost them £9.
Yeah,
I'm thinking that's a couple of pizzas,
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
you could go for lunch.
Yeah.
So no, being flippant, but I mean, advice. Yeah, don't let it define you. You can live with it. You just need to find ways of coping. And society's got a lot to learn. Do you know what I mean? You go places, and some people have. This is a slightly different thing, but they decide to accommodate a wheelchair and disabled people by having handrails and things everywhere. Whereas if you go to, say, a well-designed loo that has the sink on one side, the loo in the middle, and a kind of recess and a soap dish or something on one side, you can actually do all the things you need to do, lever yourself up, without all the accoutrements of disability, actually.
Yeah.
And it's just chance. I mean, sometimes you go into a hotel bathroom, and it just so happens things are in the right place.
Yeah.
We go to a place in Mallorca, and it's a little old farmhouse, but everything's just in the right place. You don't need all the rails.
I never thought to ask this, but you've just made me think about it now. As an architect, has that influenced your thinking?
Yes.
Since you've developed?
Yeah. No question at all about it. But it should be just normal thinking.
Yeah, it should be every architect's thought process.
Exactly. It should be normal thinking. And actually, to be fair, the building regulations in Scotland are really quite forward thinking when it comes to physical disability.
Okay. That'd be worth exploring a bit more too, but we won't this afternoon. Perhaps
they
another
are
time.
definitely pretty good compared to other nations, actually. I mean, I was shocked, even going somewhere like Belgium, nothing. No, I mean, I thought Europe led the way and all that sort of thing. Couldn't find a disabled loo anywhere, nothing. Thresholds, nothing.
That's rubbish.
Whereas we are quite spoiled here, actually. It's a lot better than some places in Europe.
Not as bad as it could be, I guess. It's maybe the way to look at it. It's not bad, but...
So I'm still racking my brains thinking, is there any other advice? I feel like I should have some, having lived with this for 30 years. But, it's difficult.
Well, we've only just met, and I think, having spent the time listening with you, there's definitely something to be said about not letting it define you and not feeling you've not got any other opportunities ahead from a career or a creative or a social or a relationship. I think that it's not a full stop.
No. And be positive. I mean, the only thing, I've said this before, and I'm sure other people have said it, I'm sure you think it too, the only thing we've got in common is the uncertainty.
Yes.
As MSers, that's the only thing we've got in common.
Yeah.
Is the uncertainty. And that uncertainty can be in itself quite a debilitating thing if you let it eat away at you, if you dwell on it.
If you linger in that
how,
space.
how
the funny
am I
thing is,
going to be
life
tomorrow?
is pretty uncertain anyway.
Exactly.
With or without.
Yeah. But thinking that you might wake up tomorrow with, especially when you're going through the relapse stage, when you start to feel things not quite right, you get panicky and think, am I having a relapse? That kind of thing. that uncertainty can be a bit of a horrible feeling. So, I don't know whether it's going to shorten my life or whether, so there's a degree of uncertainty about that. But as I say, live in the moment,
Sounds like as good a way as any to bring it to a
we
wrap.
all have
Absolutely.
our worries, we all have our concerns, we've all got shit in our lives, but actually enjoy it. I lost my best friend a couple of years ago at 66. I lost my close colleague who I did that building with at 37. He was a dialysis patient. He died at 37. Another colleague went there just recently at 55. And I just think,
but we're still here.
We're still here. I'm still here. Okay.
We've a life to live.
Yeah, I've got a life to live. Got a fabulous family and life and things, and enjoy it.
No, that's very good. That's very good. To finish us off.
Yeah.
Not finish us off. To finish this off, I'm asking everyone if they've got a piece of music or a track or a song or something which doesn't necessarily define you and your MS and how you feel and things, but maybe a motivational
piece. That is a very
difficult
question for me, because my other hobby is audio and music.
Now you tell me after I've said this, I'm not sure set up.
I've got a massive super duper audio system because I'm not going climbing Munros. Do you know what I mean? I'm not going away. I sit in front of my hi-fi and listen to my music. So music is a massive part of my life. When you ask me, do I have a favourite track or a piece of music, that is incredibly difficult.
You can have two.
It's just so difficult because my taste is so broad.
After a day like today, graduation, lots of people on a high, what are you likely to go home and play?
Go home and play. Could be anything from day to day, just different. I was listening to Free last night. I was listening, you know what I mean? Could be anything. What did I play yesterday? I played Free live. I played Pink Floyd. I played The Cars. I played some jazz. You know what I mean? It's like I couldn't pin down a favorite.
I know it's like
track.
trying to name your favourite children or your favourite movie and things.
I couldn't. I mean, I struggle. I really struggle to do that because I just listen to so much music. What
was the last thing you listened to? Free,
yeah.
Any particular track of theirs which is a standout for you?
All Right Now.
All Right Now.
I'm feeling all right now.
There you go. That wasn't intended at all, but
isn't that a nice ending?
That's it.
All right now. We're all right now.
We're all right now. Graeme, thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure.